Hello, everybody. Welcome to TMI Live number 40, Part B, which I'm calling 3 books on 1 page. I'm trying this again because last night during my regular broadcast there was a lot of crazy static, so I'm not going to bother posting that onto the YouTube channel. I don't think. I'll just redo something. And actually I'm going to do something different because last night as I was going through my weekly work inventorying Eric's library, this book was on the shelf, Empedocles, a Philosophical Investigation, which has a preface by Marshall McLuhan. And the preface is Empedocles and T.S. Eliot. Anyway, a friend of mine, Adam, hi Adam, if you're there, had expressed interest, so I went to look through the file, the 1975 file, to see if we had a copy of it. And we didn't, but as often happens when you go looking, you find something. And what I found was this sheet of paper, and it's on Center for Culture and Technology letterhead. How's it sounding? Still slight static. I don't know what's up with that. Okay. Thanks, Rain. You know what I'm going to try? I'm just going to try to see if I can. How's that? Is that any better? Let's try it like this, just in case. This paper. And it's written as if it was a letter, but it's not addressed to anybody, and it's not signed, so it's more a statement. And it was also written July 9th, 1975, 3 days before I was born. It's kind of interesting. So I thought I would share this letter with you as a memory cut for what happened last night. Static increase? What is going on? Okay. Technical difficulties. I'm not sure what to do about all that. I'm not doing anything different. Is that listenable? Anybody? Does it sound okay? What do you think? Say, Rain, what do you say? Somebody give me a thumbs up or something. Anyway, I'll keep going. 3 paragraphs, and hello, Timmy from, hey, Timmy from Buenos Aires. Nice to hear you. No static? Okay, that's weird. Anyway, so let's start over. So this sheet of paper, thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Written on Center for Culture and Technology letterhead. Yes, much better, thank you. And one of these days I'll figure out how to flip the camera so everything I show you isn't backwards. Won't that be a trick? Much better. Perfect. Thank you all. I'm going to read the first paragraph here. Center for Culture and Technology, Marshall McLuhan, Director, July 9th, 1975. I'm presently writing a book on the laws of the media. Note, the laws of the media. One of the exciting things I discovered while writing it was that the 4 parts of each of the media laws actually constituted the 4 parts of a metaphor. This was discovered sometime after the 4 parts had been worked out by rule of thumb. In other words, the outerings or utterings of man, whether in hardware or software form, have a distinctly linguistic character. All of our hardware monsters, whether bulldozers and jackhammers or pins and paper, are verbal and linguistic entirely. So he's referring to this book, which would be published 13 years later, Laws of Media, the New Science, co-written by Eric McLuhan, and Marshall and Eric working together to revise understanding media, came upon this idea of looking for laws of media, to find out whether, like physics, which has laws, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. They decided to try and find out whether there were any blanket statements you could say about human technologies across the board. And that was the criteria that they had to apply across the board to everything from bulldozers and jackhammers to pens and paper to anything. And so there couldn't be any exceptions. That was the criteria. And they ended up finding 4, as Marshall alludes to here. And perhaps unsurprisingly, given their Marshall and Eric both English literature background, they found that they have a, quote, distinctly linguistic character. And not only that, but Marshall and Eric, always alive to patterns, saw 4, thought metaphor, not just because of the pun, but because of the 4 parts of a metaphor, and discovered that the parts of the tetrad, which, here's an example of the tetrad here. I make up this little blank. What does it enhance? What does it retrieve when pushed? What does it reverse into? And what does it obsolesce? Those are the 4 parts. Enhance, obsolesce, reverse, retrieve. They discovered that, like metaphor, they have that relation, that ratio of A is to B as C is to D, so that within the 4 parts there is a harmony back to front, top to bottom, which is very useful when you're trying to fill in these blanks as to what these technologies do. If you have 1, 2, even 3 of them, and you know that A is to B as C is to D, when it helps you discover this missing piece, because you look for a harmony, for a resonance, for a rhyme, and that can be useful. The other thing, I didn't mean this to be a whole thing on tetrads, but the other thing is that these are not one answer questions. They're phrased as questions to allow you to question, to probe, as McLuhan's like to say, into the nature of something, to explore. And you're not expected to have, there's not just one answer for what does any given technology enhance, because especially today our technologies enhance many, many things, not just one. So there isn't just one right answer. Any useful answer is a right answer, essentially. And look, the name of the game isn't to win marks on a test, it's to probe the nature of technology and to try and understand how things work. So the useful answer is the correct answer, and the incorrect answer is the one that isn't useful, essentially. So that's the first book in the first paragraph. I would recommend this book, but it's very dense. A better introduction is The Lost Tetrads of Marshall McLuhan, which this was Eric McLuhan's last book, which came out in 2016, I think. And it's very accessible, whereas this was written more when my dad had fairly recently got his PhD and was trying to prove it. This was written more to be an accessible entry into the tetrad. So I'd recommend that, The Lost Tetrads of Marshall McLuhan, OR Books. It's a cool little thing. And also in the back there, he has blanks and talks about the different ways to look at it. And one of the things he does is he takes this, I have it laid out as EFRO, enhance, flip, or reverse, retrieve, and obsolesce. But to help you keep free of the structure, you can move them around to a certain extent. There are 8 different combinations to keep that A is to B as C is to D ratio. And the point of that is that, and this is where Marshall and Eric got into trouble when they first started, is instead of EFRO, they used ABCD, and it was always enhance, obsolesce, reverse, retrieve. And it took them a long time. In fact, I don't think Marshall figured it out before he died. I'm pretty sure that was Dad later on. That the whole point of the tetrad in these effects is that they're not sequential, they're not ABCD, they're simultaneous, they're all present at once. So it helps creatively to look into it by switching up the order so that you're not following this sequential thing. And I'm bad for it too, but it does help. So that's Laws of Media, the New Science. And that's just the first paragraph. We get a little more complicated here. Marshall goes on, another quite separate matter that has surfaced and focused is the character of formal causality as it operates in the area of the audience or the public. This too I discovered by rule of thumb, as it were, on inquiring into why a great deal of French interest in my work seemed to come from the linguistic area. I was curious to know why audience studies should interest them. In effect, this is quite something. In effect, all of my work is concerned with the effects, underlined, of things on people and society. In effect, all of my work is concerned with the effects of things on people and society. That's a pretty concise summary. It also works the other way. Audiences are the constitutive factor in all kinds of performance, whether in the arts or in technology. That is to say, Plato's philosophy was a response to the people and the problems of his time. Bracket. Are you familiar with the tradition that Plato's dialogues were considered to be mimes? You see, my speaking of the absence of theories of communication from Plato to the present is directly related to this problem of formal causality, for the Western world has concerned itself almost entirely with efficient causality, which includes the supposed content of Plato's or anyone else's thought. Without an understanding of formal causality, there can be no theory of communication. What passes as information theory today is not communication at all, but merely transportation. And here Marshall has brought up two more books, which my father was able to bring out later. Actually, both of these came out in the same year. Media and Formal Cause, 2011 from NeoPoesis Press, and eternally grateful to Lance Straight at NeoPoesis for his help in getting this published, because nobody else would publish it. And it's a very important piece. What it is it's a collection of essays by Marshall and Eric McLuhan on formal causality. And it goes back to 1965 and comes up later. Causality, this idea of causality is another fourfold pattern, and it goes back to Aristotle, if not further, but we know it as Aristotelian. And it says that of the causes of things, there are four causes. And those are the efficient cause, the material cause, the formal cause, and the final cause. I would highly recommend, because my dad was way more an expert than I am, I'm just barely understanding this. The last Media Ecology Association conference that Dad attended, we attended together in 2018 in Moraga, California, St. Mary's University. There was a panel, actually, after Media and Formal Cause, a group of people from the MEA, the Media Ecology Association, got together and wrote a book, which I have up there somewhere, called Taking Up McLuhan's Cause. And it was all responses to Media and Formal Cause to this book. And this book, in turn, was a response to comments from the MEA listserv that got under my dad's skin, and he finally sat down and put this together. Anyway, my dad was asked to be on this panel of people responding to medium formal cause through their book, Taking Up McLuhan's Cause. And he had the last word, and luckily I took my phone out and I recorded it as a voice memo, and it runs just about 20 minutes, and it's a very, very clear, succinct discussion on causality and what these things mean in the McLuhan sense of the word, because formal cause is not something that I don't think everybody agrees on. For sure, the McLuhan understanding of it is not the popular understanding, because from what I know, most people think of formal cause as the blueprint. So what it comes down to is that Aristotle said there are four causes for anything to be, and that's the material cause, the very materials, the efficient cause, which is the assembly of something, the final cause, which is, basically the need, the object itself, and then the formal cause. And for the McLuhans, formal cause means essentially environmental cause, and that is it's a weird thing because it gets into a merging of cause and effect, where the effect of something else is the cause of something else, that the effect of the telephone was present before the telephone actually showed up because of the telegraph, and so on and so on. So it's this idea that we live in technological environments, which or media, a technological medium in that sense of environment, of culture, which grows certain things. The fact that we live this close to the sun and we have this much moisture and nutrients allows certain things to grow. And in that environment is the formal cause. So that's the second book. Also in that paragraph, he said, without an understanding of formal causality, there can be no theory of communication. And this gets into another project which Marshall and Eric had started, which my dad published in 2011 through Peter Lang Publishers in New York, and that's this remarkable book, Theories of Communication. And this actually kind of grows out of Marshall's studies in literary criticism with practical criticism. And the basis of theories of communication is that if you want to find out what any given person's theory of communication is, you ask two questions. Who is their intended audience, and what effect are they trying to achieve? You answer those two questions and you have their theory of communication. But coming back to what Marshall says here, without an understanding of formal causality, there can be no theory of communication. In the introduction to this book, one of the first things Dad says, the opening, first paragraph, a fundamental principle of this book is that communication entails change. The sine qua non of communication, therefore, is the matter of effect. If there is no effect, if there is no change in the audience, there is no communication. The approach is rhetoric to the core. Exactly. Rhetoric, which is concerned with change, with metaphysics, with persuasion, changing somebody's mind. It's a metaphysical thing. I would heartily recommend this book as well, obviously. It's several chapters that Eric put together of different people's theories of communications, and he talks about their idea in the first place. But most importantly, chapter 16, Marshall McLuhan's theory of communication, is quite a remarkable thing, and it's basically a blueprint for McLuhan's studies going forward. It's something else. And it's funny because, Marshall famously said he doesn't have any theories, The last little paragraph is just this little bit here. Mass media in all their forms are necessarily environmental and therefore have the character of formal causality. In that sense, all myth is the report of the operation of formal causality. Since environments change constantly, the formal causes of all the arts and sciences change too. So there you have it. 3 books, 1 page. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. Be safe out there, and I'll catch you next week. Good night.